Welcome to the Diminutive Collection, where we take a step back in time to enjoy once again the joyous pop sounds of Bubblegum's pop's greatest stars.
First up, Kieran and I will be plunging headfirst into the campy pop sounds of mighty girl boy band Steps, who, as we all know, are still banging out chart-topping dance floor bangers to this very day.
Over the next few weeks, we'll revisit the back catalogue and choose the brilliant songs we think are 5, 6, 7 great, and the clunky stinkers that will leave us feeling a deeper shade of blue. Steps first burst onto the scene back in the glorious 90s when H, Claire, Lee, Lisa, and Faye were smashing up the dance charts with the high energy tracks like Tragedy, Deeper Shade of Blue, One for Sorrow, and touring with the likes of Britney Spears.
The critics and their pop peers hated them, branding them trashy, but the band were loved by millions who gaily snapped up 3 huge selling albums and packed into arenas to watch them on their several mega-selling arena tours before splitting in 2000.
We kick off this sensational new series with Step 1, the group's tiniest sounding debut album that kicked their career off.
Steps got together way back in 1997 when manager Tim Byrne posted an advert in the Stage newspaper seeking boys and girls to join a pop band.
Ian Watkins and Lisa Scott Lee were the first of the group to be picked and were teamed up with other pop wannabes Derek O'Brien, Maddie Chan, and Mitch Stevens.
However, believing a line dancing band could only ever be a one-hit wonder, Derek, Maddie, and Mitch quit. And they were replaced by Claire Richards, Lee Latchford Evans, and Faye Tozer, and Steps was formed.
5, 6, 7, 8 charted at number 14 and stayed in the charts for 4 months and became one of the biggest selling singles of 97, not to make the top 10.
While many thought they'd disappear as fast as they had arrived, the group caught Pete Waterman's eye, who had for years been desperate to launch an ABBA-inspired group, an idea he tried to work out with Bananarama on their Please Yourself album.
Once they were signed to Jive, Pete got them to record Bananarama's Last Thing on My Mind, which peaked at number 6. This was followed in August by their breakthrough single, One for Sorrow, which made number 2.
And then came the album Step 1. Released in the UK and Europe on September the 14th, 1998, the album entered the charts at number 2 and was beaten to the top spot by Manic Street Preachers' This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours. But it went on to spend 64 weeks in the chart.
Well, without further ado, let's get to it, Christian, and let's talk about Step 1. See, I have full disclosure here. I'm originally Australian, as we all know. However, I wasn't that into Steps because Steps came out when I was at uni. Obviously, 5, 6, 7, 8. That song was very big in Australia. It went, to top 5, I think.
Oh, really? Wow.
But I didn't experience the full joy of Steps until I was living in England, and that's when I kind of understood it. So I'm going back and listening to these album tracks for the first time because I know the singles really well. But going back and listening to the album tracks, it's been quite an experience for me.
Well, I remember when I first heard of Steps, because I've always loved boy-girl bands, and I used to love Bucks Fizz in the 80s. So I'd always longed to have a band that were like Bucks Fizz. And there weren't any. We had boy bands in the 90s, and then you had girl bands with the Spice Girls. And we were kind of missing that boy-girl group. And then, obviously, Steps appeared. And as we'll discuss later, when I heard the first single, 5, 6, 7, 8, I wasn't a big fan because it sounded novelty. It was a bit silly. And I didn't really enjoy that kind of line dancing trend that was going on at the time. But then as they released other songs, I actually fell in love with them and thought they were one of the best bands ever. And I was so glad that even though they weren't well received by critics and the musos, they were one of these bands, a bit like Kylie, who are embraced by their fans and are turned into superstars by their fans, and they mean so much to them.
Okay. Should we talk about Step 1?
Yes,
let's talk about Step 2, actually. The very first track on the album, Step 1, is Step Tro. And I miss people not having these little kind of intros into albums anymore. I think it's the perfect beginning for this album. It kind of sets the scene for what you're about to hear. It kind of elevates excitement. So I was digging this, and I was thinking maybe more artists should be doing little intros like this into their albums because you don't really see it. Janet Jackson used to do it and had like these little excerpts and everything. So it was very much of the 90s time, late 90s time. But, I really liked this sort of prelude to what we were going to hear.
It's literally 58 seconds. This kind of rumbling, dancey thing. But then it kind of leads into the opening strains of Last Thing on My Mind. So if you look at the writing credits, there's actually the song is credited to Mike Stock, Pete Waterman, Sarah Dallin, and Kerry Woodward from Bananarama, even though literally it's the last bit of this intro that has their that has the song in it. So but hey, yeah, you're right. It's an interesting opening to an album because yeah, we normally just lead it straight into an album with a song, and why not have a lovely, exciting introduction that kind of leads you into what you're expecting. Although I have to admit, it's a lot dancier and almost cool sounding compared to the rest of the album. If you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It does kind of like fool you a little bit.
Yes, and also the fact that it didn't have an outro either kind of a little bit upset me. Why have the steptro without a step outro on the album? But anyway.
You are crazy.
Let's talk about Last Thing on My Mind. Now, for me, I wasn't aware of the Bananarama version until maybe about 10 years ago. So and doing research, I was shocked that they wrote this song. I even texted you like, "Oh my god, did you know that Bananarama wrote this song?" You're like, "Yes." I love it. It's brilliant. It's a great song.
Well, this song comes from their "Please Yourself" album, and
is that the white cover? Is it the black and white cover?
Yes, I think it's a white cover, and there's a little box picture of the two girls in it. It's when they were cut down to a two-piece, and they'd previously been quite cool by working with cool producers, and then they went back to Stock and Waterman because I think Aitken had left at this point. Yeah. So this was a song that they had, and it didn't do very well. The original version is kind of more ballady. It's not ballady. It's a more low tempo song, so it doesn't sound like the Steps version at all. And it didn't do all that well in the charts. It got to about number 75 or something. So it was a massive flop for Bananarama. So when I heard that they were doing this song, because I obviously loved "Please Yourself," and I loved the original song because there's also a cheap dance remix by Bananarama, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah, so when I heard that Steps were doing this, I thought, oh my god, this is amazing because it's like they're dusting off an old pop song that I used to love. And so when I heard it, it was absolutely joyous. I mean, it had a kind of sound that I guess when I thought Pete Waterman was involved, it would sound like old stock Aitken Waterman, but it had a different sound. But I mean, it was a very pop sound, and it was just it was a breath of fresh air because even Spice Girls, even though they were poppy, their songs. I was a Spice Girls fan. I'll admit that. So Steps had a sound that was completely different to any of the other bands out there. They didn't sound like the Boyzones. They didn't sound like the Spice Girls. They had this kind of unique pop, shiny pop sound that I think no one else had.
Yeah, they were a perfect pop package, you could probably call them at that time. A few stats on this. Last Thing on My Mind debuted at number 6 on the UK singles chart on the 26th of April, 1998, then fluctuated inside the top 10 for about 3 weeks. It then re-entered at number 6 in its 5th week and spent a further week in the top 10. So it basically did a collective run of 14 consecutive weeks in the charts.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess on paper, they are kind of could be considered as a bit cheesy, and they weren't. I mean, this was at a period of time where indie was ruling the waves in the UK, and it was all kind of like Britpop, and it's quite cool. I mean, Spice Girls had kind of brought the pop back a couple of years beforehand, but pop wasn't perceived in the same way as it had been before. But the video for the song they shot in Cuba, and it was a really classy looking. It was a really classy looking video.
Do you think?
No, it was. It looks.
It's a full-on cheese fest, but Steps. I mean,
But they do. But Faye and Claire do a little bit of the kind of ABBA, side profile stuff, which I love. But then there's a lot. This is going to sound really silly, but there's a bit where they're doing a dance routine by the pool, and I can't remember who's wearing orange, but the outfits were just lovely tones of orange, and I just loved it. So,
so yeah, the costumes in the video. So Claire stood out because she stood out like a sore thumb because the other girls in Lee had orange. H and Lisa had white, and Lisa had orange shorts, and then Claire was in. So Claire kind of stood out like dog's balls. She she didn't fit in with what the other guys were wearing, but I was a little bit obsessed with the Cuban heels that the guys were wearing in the video as well. And also the dance routine didn't start in the video until 2:20. So that was when we got a dance routine. But I thought the ABBA references that they did make me laugh as soon as I saw it. How you've got them doing the whole kind of turning their heads to the camera stuff. It's actually a really kind of fun video. It's very cheesy. But can I just say, and throughout the videos, and it does annoy me a little bit, is Claire Richards can't lip sing. Have you ever noticed? She overmouths her words in the music videos.
Oh, no, I've never really noticed that. No, I've been too busy looking at her twitching nose. So I've never really been... I've never noticed that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, have a look and just notice the way she lip syncs. Mandy Moore is another one who can't lip sing in videos. But anyway, that's what kind of just I was watching it last night, going, "Ooh, Okay.
Just going back to what you said about Claire and her dress by the swimming pool, you're right. The Crazy Minx is wearing a complete like gown, while the others are wearing like Faye's wearing a lovely orange swimsuit, and Lee's wearing a lovely orange vest, and Lisa's revealing all in a little tied white top. And then there's Claire in this big, long, shiny pink dress. It's not exactly beachwear, is it?
No, it's not.
Or swimming pool wear. It's very bizarre. But anyway.
But you don't really get to see Lisa Scott Lee until the Better Best Forgotten video, because she seems to just be in the background in these videos. They don't show much of her. But it's not until the Better Best Forgotten you actually get to see her perform. I think you see snippets of her in these videos up until then, like in the back of the Jeep in 5, 6, 7, 8, and kind of felt a bit sorry for her.
Well, I guess in some ways, I mean, Claire's got such a powerhouse vocal that, I'm assuming, well, we kind of know in retrospect now that obviously the producers were quite, taken by her strong vocals. So they built the songs around her in a way. So even though Lisa was one of the original members, they obviously heard Claire's amazing vocals and decided to kind of, give her the kind of lead vocals. Although having said that, if you listen to all the members, they've all got great voices.
5, 6, 7, 8 is the next track on the album, which I loved because obviously it's country and everything, but this is a conundrum of a song. It has dance, it has country, it has techno, it has popped, all wrapped up into this. It's got steel guitar and fiddle, and yeah, it works with this kind of techno breakdown. It shouldn't work, but it really, really does. This was obviously as an Australian, my very first introduction to Steps. This was quite big in Australia. It went to number 1.
Really? No, I don't believe that.
Yeah, went to number 1 in Australia and peaked at top 5 in New Zealand.
God, I never knew that.
It was huge. It was massive.
So where's Steps big in Australia? Did they have a career after 5, 6, 7, 8, or was it just that?
I remember 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't really remember the other ones.
Oh, interesting.
But then again, I was not into the pop kind of scene then. I still was into Kylie and stuff, but I wasn't really into anything else. But I don't remember the other songs until when I came to England, I was fully immersed into the greatness and glory that is Steps.
Well, I guess this kind of followed on from songs like Cotton Eye Joe. So there was a kind of a, I mean, it was one of those sort of novelty records, I think, and it was kind of, I think, originally kind of put together as a novelty kind of record. I have to admit, I absolutely hated the song when I heard it because I just thought it was so cheap. But I loved the idea of the band because when I saw them, I thought, oh, they look amazing. They're a nice looking band. They look like they were different. There'd been a boy girl band before called Deuce, who were kind of bright colours, but they didn't last very long. And then I thought, well, this lot looked like they could be quite poppy. But when I heard the song, I just thought, oh, God, it's really irritating because I don't like songs like that. And I hate line dancing. And as you know, I hate country stuff.
It was written by Barry Upton and Steve Crosby. And it peaked at number 14 in the UK singles charts, one of their lowest positions. But yet, as we mentioned, had the third highest sales of any single in their career in the United Kingdom, selling 365,000 copies.
Good Lord.
And receiving 3.4 million streams as of March 2017. But obviously, they'll be growing up now. The video is interesting. It starts off with a shirtless Ian and Lee bike riding on a beach, being all butch on the sandy seashores, while Claire is over-enunciating her words yet again in the video. And for the early videos, Faye is the real star. She kind of opens them up, and she seems great. And I love the video, even the cheesy dance routine where towards the end, everyone in the beach club gets and does it quite awkwardly. And I think it's a really great video and a really good song. I think even now, if this came on the clubs and people were allowed to go in clubs, I think people would still enjoy and get up and dance to this song.
It's like a memory song, isn't it? It's one of those things that reminds you of a certain time. And I guess it's a little bit like, it's a bit like I Should Be So Lucky. It's one of those songs that you just kind of hate, but you like at the same time. The video is funny because it looks like they haven't met a stylist yet because in some of the close-ups they've got very little makeup on. But then they're at the beach, of course. But they don't look like superstars at this point. They look like 5 people who just walked off the street, which I guess they had. The dance routine, I think, is the thing that really set them out from all the other bands because I think all the other bands were trying to be too cool. Even the Spice Girls, fair enough, they still did the dance routines, but they were never very slick. The reason why they did so well is because they had good pop songs, but they also played up on the fact that they loved their dance routines and they were quite tight. But the dance routines were also very simple for people to kind of learn. And I think that made made Steps very kind of interactive with their fans, and fans could do what they saw on stage.
Because yeah, there were kind of the easy kind of routine. Let's move on to One for Sorrow, which is a very ABBA sounding track. I can imagine ABBA singing this. It's got a great build up to the chorus, and when it gets to the chorus, it's just sensational. This song is amazing. Love it.
Well, this is their breakthrough song in some ways, because it was the one that got to number 2. It did really, really well for them. I remember hearing this for the first time because I loved Lost in My Mind. So I knew that I'd found a band that had songs that would make me happy. And then when they released this song, I was blown away by it, because to start with, it's a little bit on the slower side. It sounds like it could be a ballad. And it's got this, in the video, you've got, opens with this church tower and all these stormy clouds.
Yes.
And it's quite moody. And you think, what's going on here? And it looked like there's a lot of money put in the video. So obviously people were, backing them. And there's Claire singing at a window, and she's singing this lovely song.
She's caressing the door frame very seductively, I noticed.
And, oh, bless her. But she does it very well.
She does.
But then when you get to this chorus, and it's this kind of winner takes it all chorus, and this is what Steps did for a while, because they have a song on the next album that's also cut from the same kind of winner takes it all template, and it's absolutely joyous. It's kind of heartbreaking and poppy at the same time, which I think is an amazing amalgamation of styles. It's just got an amazing chorus, and of course the winning part of it was the dance routine where they used 2 fingers, which everyone was doing when they saw the video and when they saw them perform it live. So they came up with a routine that was something that everyone could just join in with.
Yeah, but this song didn't need a dance routine, I don't think. It didn't automatically suggest a dance routine. It's a great pop song, but for me, I think the dance routine was just put in there because it's Steps and you need a dance routine to go along with it.
But I think Steps were conceived as a band who were about dancing and about pop music, and I think, and it was whoever came up with the idea were very clever, because by associating them with dance routines that are really easy to do, you always remember the songs. The songs live on through dance routines. As I said in a previous podcast about when they released Better the Devil You Know, and they did this terrible thing with their hands at the end of the chorus, and I've seen people at Kylie concerts doing the Steps hand motion to Better the Devil You Know, and that breaks my heart because it's horrible, but it's very clever because that's what you pick up. And when you do like Tragedy, for example, you have the hands by the side of the head. It was just this very clever way of not only having a brilliant pop song, you've got a dance routine that then becomes part of your real life in some ways. So if you hear the word tragedy, you immediately put your hand to the side of your head. It's a very, very bizarre, very bizarre thing, except unless you're a newsreader and you're talking about a tragedy. If you start doing that in the middle of a newscast, it might be a little bit concerning.
Just going back to the video as well, you see the guys, they're all frolicking around in a field after, Claire's caressing the door frame. And then things take a bit of a turn for a worse. When around about 2 minutes 22, Lisa balances a fruit bowl on her head. And then you see his ball juggling skills.
He's been doing them ever since.
But then you've got this really cringy dance routine. I mean, it's one of the best videos I think I've ever seen in my whole entire life.
I guess we were still early on in the career, so the fruit bowl balancing was probably just Lisa's way of showing people, look, I've got other talents too. I don't just whisper in the middle of the songs. So that was probably that's the reason why. The thing that also makes me laugh about the video is I love the fact it's in this beautiful field of sunflowers. It's got a lovely spring feel to it. But in the last video for Last Thing on My Mind, Claire was by the swimming pool in a long gown. Now she's in the middle of a sunflower field in a bra top. It's like, well, I'm not quite sure where you're going with these clothes, but hey, she looks amazing.
She looks incredible. They all do.
Absolutely stunning. Yeah, they actually look like the perfect pop band.
Oh, brilliant.
Perfect, absolutely beautiful.
Like growing in a pop factory, and they've just matured into these incredible pop stars is brilliant.
But none of them were ever too pretty, if you know what I mean. They weren't. They were very accessible looking people. They're all very beautiful people, but they're not like the model pop stars that you kind of get now, like the Dua Lipas, who are all kind of like they look like they walked on a catwalk. They just look like normal boys and girls next door. And I think that's the other reason why Steps did so well, because all of them looked like people that we knew. Yeah. They weren't people that we were scared to get to know. We weren't, intimidated by them. They were just full of bright smiles. They were singing cheesy pop songs. They weren't ashamed of it. And I think that's why the nation fell in love with Steps.
This song, they had a remix version of this song that became their debut US single in 1999 that was featured on the film Drive Me Crazy, the soundtrack. It became Steps' only single to appear on any US Billboard chart, peaking at number 38 on the Hot Dance Club Play chart in October 1999.
And they also shot a new video for it too. And the video is it's very slick. You can tell that obviously more money went into this one.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next track, Heartbeat. Now, this was released as a double A-side single with Tragedy, but we won't talk about Tragedy today because it's on the next album, so we'll review that later on. But let's talk about Heartbeat. So this was the fourth single released by Steps and was the first ballad to be released by the group, I think. It's known as the Christmas single, even though Christmas doesn't feature in any parts of the lyrics, but I think it was just released around near Christmas time.
It was released in November of 98. I think it was perceived as a Christmas single because the videos, them frolicking in the snow and sharing gifts in a chalet.
The double A-side single hit number 1 spot in the UK English charts after 8 weeks, and then spent a total of 30 weeks in the chart and sold more copies than all 3 previous Step singles combined, with 1.21 million copies sold in the UK alone. It's insane. Heartbeat is a beautiful ballad, as we said. I personally love the bridge. I think it adds another dimension to the song. I think it's just a beautifully constructed love song, pop ballad. The only thing for me, and I'm probably going to get hate from people saying this, but the only thing I didn't like in the track is towards the end of the track, and I don't know the duration on it, but we have H gives a really weak response. And it sounds a little bit wet to me, but other than that, I think the song is absolutely brilliant.
It's got some lovely harmonies in the chorus, actually. I think it's the boys who do it. In the background in the chorus, you can hear this kind of low harmony. It's really lovely, which I really like. It makes me feel very happy. I loved this song when I first heard it. Thought it was amazing. But then when I saw the video, the video is hilarious because basically it's the 5 of them go off to the Swiss Alps or somewhere, and they're staying in a lovely chalet, and there's an evil ice queen determined on ruining Steps. So she sends out some little people to go and kidnap H, and they drag him by the shoulders through the snow and take him to the Ice Queen, and it's left for our remaining members of Steps dressed as James Bond's spies to rescue H.
That looked like that video had money as well injected into it, because that looked like a proper big production video.
Yeah, there seems to be a nice set going on. Well, it looks like a little curtain backdrop, but with a big throne. But but it is funny in the video because when you do look back at it, there's a bit. Well, I mean, it's probably offensive these days, but there's a bit where one of the little people is trying to have a go at Faye, but she's got a hand on his head, and then they start polishing her with a feather duster, which is very, very bizarre.
Terrible.
But all the while it ends well because at the end they're all back in their chalet and they're celebrating Christmas and exchanging gifts and popping poppers. So it's a lovely video. Although one thing I will say, Faye Tozer's got dreadlocks and Claire ill-advisedly went for a red hairdo, which I wasn't a big fan of. But hey, they still look lovely.
This Heart Will Love Again is the next track. And for me, doing research for this podcast was the very first time I heard this song. And I didn't mind it. I think it was a much mature love song than what we've heard thus far on the album. I was digging it until the chorus. The chorus for me really let me down, in my opinion. I felt like it was leading to something amazing with the chord progression and everything, but then I just felt a little bit deflated. I think the backing sounded a little bit cheap, but there's nothing wrong with that, I think.
No.
But yeah, it was a little bit of a letdown for me.
Yeah, this is one of those songs where it's obviously an album track or a B-side, and it's got a great verse. You're right, the verses are good because it's got this kind of weird, this lovely timpani sound, boom, boom, and it gives it a little bit more kind of, it gives the song a bit more, even though it's got a tinny backing track, it gives the song an extra element that makes it sound a little bit kind of cooler. But yeah, the chorus isn't as good as it could be, and it is a letdown in comparison to the verses because, as you say, it's kind of leading you somewhere, but then it's not quite what you expect. So I guess this is like a musical version of what's that thing? Edging. You know, you're bringing someone to the edge, but then you just don't really go any further.
Experienced is the next song on the album. So Christian, why don't you go first on this one? Because I know you quite like this.
I do like this song, and it's all about H losing his virginity to a woman. There you go. But of course, it's not really, because this song first appeared on Worlds Apart's album years beforehand. And so I loved it on that because I thought it's got a really lovely melody. And I mean, I'm never a person to listen to lyrics, but this is the first time I actually listened to a song's lyrics because they were obviously about that moment where you lose your cherry. And
You need someone experienced to guide the way, kind of thing. It's an odd song.
I guess maybe in these days it could be interpreted as some kind of like grooming thing, but hey, that's by the by. But
it was written by Mike Stock and Pete Waterman.
But it's got a great melody and it's got great chords.
I mean, no Finer Feelings, because I think that was their ultimate kind of sex song.
Oh no,
this really isn't Finer Feelings by a long shot.
No, it's true, and I do think that the production of this makes it sound a little bit kind of like it's slow, a bit too slow. It feels quite lethargic, but then the original version sounded quite lethargic too. It's got kind of like the tempo's too slow. It just needs speeding up slightly. I would love to have heard like a remix of it.
Yeah,
but I've always liked the song. I just think it's got a nice melody, and it was nice to hear H's voice because at that point we hadn't really heard him sing.
And he's got a great voice as well. He's got some pipes. He's very, very good.
He's very talented.
For me, I think it just stuck out a little bit. Like it didn't sound like anything that was on the album. It could have done this, held on to this song and released it as a solo single. When he did H and Claire. Let's move on to Too Weak to Resist.
You see, this is the problem. This is where, for me, this first album kind of falters slightly because obviously we bought into Steps because they had this kind of great pop sound and it was all about dance routines and it was kind of a little bit silly, a little bit tongue-in-cheek and a bit cheesy. And when you have things like Experience and Too Weak to Resist, we're going down we're kind of moving away from that, and it's almost like their attempt to kind of show, oh, by the way, we can sing and we can do this.
Yeah,
and I think that's a shame because I would have, for this first album, I would have stuck to the tried and tested high energy sound and maybe had one ballad at the end just to show that you can do that. I mean, Heartbeat was enough of a ballad for me, to be honest. And so this song in particular is a little on the bland side for me. It's just kind of like, and the production just sounds a little bit tinny and unimaginative, and there's not really much going on. It's not a song that you would think back about 10, 20 years later.
And this again was a H vehicle, wasn't it? It was an Ian Watkins vehicle. I thought I would have liked to have heard Lee do this song. I would have liked to, I don't know, it just felt, after Experienced and then this song, they were kind of very similar, I thought. It was kind of very slow kind of ballads. I think the song had promise. I liked the chord progression. I was kind of very impressed when I first heard it, but it just didn't seem like it should have been on the album. What I would like to do is hear a modern version of this song, because the production is very of its time. It's very late 90s. If another artist would be able to rework this song, I would like to hear it, because I think it's got something.
I think it sounded actually dated at the time. I don't think it even sounded particularly current of the time, but it just sounded like one of those kind of by numbers ballads that you would just throw on an album, and it didn't have anything memorable about it. It didn't sound great, and to be honest, I can't remember what the melody is. So it's one of those that is kind of like it's kind of like the toilet break of the album.
Is it Better Best Forgotten, Christian? Because that's the next track that we're talking about.
It's already forgotten, that's for sure.
I thought this is Better Best Forgotten, great song. And after the two sloppy lead ballads that we had of H's, we're back into the dance floor territory with this song. It went to number 2 in the UK in March 1999, but was beaten by Boyzone's When the Going Gets Tough. It spent 17 weeks on the British charts and became the first single of Steps to fall off the charts and then re-enter.
There you go. See, Steps were a bit like Kylie. They had lots of number 2s, didn't they? Yeah. They were always pipped to the post at the last minute. But Better Best Forgotten was the Turquoise era, where they were all dressed up in turquoise in the video. And I like this song because it's got this kind of this is very ABBA and very jagged. And the verses have got this kind of like, it's a very dramatic sound. It's got a very ABBA sound. I get let down by the chorus. I think the chorus has a sound that I don't like.
Really?
I don't like it. I just think the chorus isn't as good as One for Sorrow's chorus. It's just a little bit irritating.
The video, I mean, you've got H and Lee with chains and water pistols, and they're acting like lunatics in the video, and you've got Faye opening up the video looking seductive, and you've got Lisa with some very interesting hair with like Courtney Cox vibe hair with like sort of blue streaks in it. It's a really fun video, and I think it works with the song.
Yeah, and Claire's hair's all kind of. She's got elastic bands all over it, where her hair's all kind of little twiggy bits.
It's such a snapshot of the 90s. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You don't get videos like this anymore because these videos are unashamedly cheesy and they're silly, but they're bright and colourful. And I think at that point in time, all these songs were, they were so bright and colourful that they made our everyday lives seem so much more fun than they actually were.
Mm.
And looking back at the video now, and just those colours are so vibrant, and as the band are so polished, and they just look so happy. It's actually a little bit of sunshine kind of in our lives, and I think that's their secret. That was the secret Steps. They brought sunshine into our miserable lives.
Back to You is the next track. For me, this sounded like a rip-off of Diana Ross's Chain Reaction, mixed with the theme tune from Full House. If you listen to those songs and then you listen to Back to You, you'll be able to understand what I'm talking about. It's not my favorite track on the album for me.
You see, I think it sounds very ABBA. I think it's got an ABBA kind of ding, 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 ding. It's got that kind of sound that they had.
Go, dun, 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 dun. It's Full House theme tune.
Okay,
did you guys have that?
Me. I need to. No, I don't think we did over here. So that could be why. But I'll have to listen to that one now. But I can kind of. But this is a good song. I love this song because it's cut from the same cloth as the other songs. It isn't single material, quite clearly, and I hate the bit at the end of the chorus. The bit at the end of the introduction where it kind of does that bit where it's back. Oh, it's horrible. I can't bear that bit. But the verses are really good. I quite like the chorus. It's catchy, but it's it's a great album track. Never want to hear it as a single. It was good. It was a good song. I liked it.
Make Me Love You More. Now, is this the very first time we hear Lisa Scott-Lee on the album?
Well, quite possibly. Is she singing on this? Is she whispering?
I think so. No, she's actually singing on this, I think. It's a weak song, sadly. Not the best on the album, but I thought it was quite good to actually hear a different voice that we've been hearing on the other songs on this. So kudos to Lisa, who I think is the lead singer on this album, on this song.
This was a cover of a dance act called Sunscream. I mean, I didn't know the song before this, and I thought it was an odd choice for them to cover. I thought, well, why would you cover a song that not many people would know? And it's not that great a song either. So it was a weird choice, and I don't think it actually fits on the album for me. It feels like an odd clunker. But then having said that, we've got two kind of wishy-washy ballads that also don't really belong on the album. Yeah, this is one of those songs that I never at the time, I listened to it, thought, I don't think I like it very much, and then never listened to it again.
It's like Stay With Me, which is the last song on the album. I think this is a disappointing way to end the album, which we had some amazing banging dance tunes, great songs on this album, but yet we end with Stay With Me. It just felt like a bit of a wasted opportunity, and not having an outro, as I said, when we had the intro to the album. It's a deeper shade of blue for me, this track.
Yeah, it's a bit of a limp, lackluster ending, to be honest, to the album, because it's just boring. It's one of those songs that has no redeeming qualities. It's just kind of a ballad for just being a ballad. It's got no real hook. It's nicely sung. I mean, this is the thing, you can't take away from the fact that Steps are great, talented singers. But I think on this first album, I guess they just didn't know what they were doing. They needed to work out what was their right sound, and they wanted to present fans with the high energy bangers and then these kind of ballads to show that they could sing. And I guess this was kind of like that kind of they wanted to try and see what worked for them. This just felt like a very rushed, put together album. But I mean, there's some great moments, and I just think this was a very poor way to end. And you're right, I think an outro would have kind of boxed it in, and then it would have been leading on to Steptacular that would follow a year later.
So, Christian, we've reviewed the album now. Which would be your 5, 6, 7 great track on this album?
Wow. I mean, if we're talking about singles, it would obviously have to be Wonderful Sorrow, because it is such an iconic song, and it's a song that kind of made them, and it is a brilliant song. Album track wise, I would say, and you'll disagree, but I love Experience. I think it's a great song with a very deep meaning, and I'm sure lots of people identified with that song. So that's, for me, that was my favorite other song. That's my 5, 6, 7 great. And yours?
Mine would be 5, 6, 7, 8 would be my 5, 6, 7 great. And then I would probably have to say Heartbeat would be my other one, because I think it's a great, great song.
But what about the non-single tracks? What would you have as a?
Ooh, my non-single one.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find one.
I know. I just don't think. Oh, I think This Heart Will Love Again, because I think there's something in there, and I loved where it was going, but I think it's the best of a bad bunch. What's your deeper shade of blue?
My deepest shade of blue. Oh well, I'm spoiled for choice. I think it could actually be "Stay With Me." I think that is my deepest shade of blue. It's boring.
Yeah, that's
And
mine
it's
as well.
totally forgettable. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining in. If you want to get in touch, please email thediminutivecollection@gmail.com or hit us up on Instagram at the Diminutive Collection. So thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Well, we'll be talking about Steptacular.
Yes, can't wait.
Good.
Thanks, bye.